Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today on our Lab to Lab Education Series webinar. I'm Katie, a Strategic Account Manager here at Evident, and I'm thrilled to be here with Tim Bertram, co-owner of Bertram Dental Lab, the largest manufacturer in metal frameworks and metal printing in the United States. On today's webinar, we'll discuss how to scale your RPD business. You'll learn how Tim scaled his RPD workflow and learn more about his workflow with technology and innovation, unlocking massive growth for his lab. But that's not all we're doing today. We also have some really exciting news for all of our labs out there who offer or are interested in offering RPDs. Evident and Bertram Dental have now partnered to provide a seamless design and fabrication service for RPDs. This partnership will help the lab who wants to move away from any traditional casting, print to cast workflow into the digital workflow, and labs who have limited scalability in their RPDs or want to offer it as a brand new product for their dentists can also use this workflow to help with, and that will be the help of the partnership. Finally, high turnaround times. We know this can be super frustrating for both labs and dentists, but with Evident's 24-hour turnaround time for design and Bertram's 48-hour turnaround time for fabrication, the simplified RPD workflow, you'll receive your cases in as fast as 3 days. And Tim, head of the largest RPD lab in the US, what are your thoughts on this partnership? What are the benefits it's going to offer our labs?
First of all, thanks for having me on this show, Katie. My thoughts on this partnership is I think it's an amazing opportunity that Bertram and Evident have been discussing for quite some time here to try to find a solution for customers that would be beneficial as far as saving time and integration between Evident, Bertram, and getting that final product. So I'm excited to be on the show. Thanks again. And I think it's a great opportunity to dive into that a little bit more and see if there's some efficiencies for all that we could benefit from.
Absolutely. And Tim's been on the show before, but for those of you who have missed the first webinar, just welcome back to the show, Tim, and maybe we could open it up with you just starting to tell us a little bit about the lab and a little bit about yourself.
Sure, absolutely. So just to give you a little background on the lab, I'll do a brief intro. The lab was founded in 1976, and it's always been founded as a metal partial lab. It was a casting lab, and my cousin Joe Bertram and I purchased the lab in 2018 and started to move into, I'll say, more digital technologies. And in 2015-16, started SLM printing. If you're not familiar with that technology, it's basically just metal printing. And I'll also add with the video going here in 2021, we moved into this new facility. This is our a little over 20,000 square feet facility that we're running our metal printers in, and we're doing still some casting based on workflows and capacity, etc. But it's grown really quickly, and we're very grateful for the team that we have in place. We have some great technicians in house, currently between 80-85 people at the lab, and yeah, I don't know what else to add there other than it's been growing pretty quick. So
yeah, I mean, I love this video. It looks great. You guys do a lot of analog still and SLM printing, so you can kind of see that in the video, all the different things that you guys are doing there and the equipment you're using.
Right. Yep. Like I said, it's all based on workflows and capacity currently. The biggest growth for us has been the SLM printing, because we wanted to offer a service to our partners that were doing some great CAD work or working with a partner like Evident to get those CAD designs and offer the manufacturing so they could get away from casting in-house. So a lot of growth has come there. And we offer, two finished options with that workflow. We have an
Mm-hmm.
unfinished and we have a pre-polished. So it takes a lot of that labor and time savings that we can all benefit from.
Maybe you could tell us a little bit about yourself too, Tim. How long have you been in the dental business for, and where did your interest start off there?
Sure. So this year will be 18 years. I've been in the lab business at Bertram Dental Lab the entire time. That's my full time. I don't count when I was a kid, but I grew up in the lab. My dad and my uncle started the lab, and as I mentioned, Joe and I took that over in 2018. But Joe and I are both third gen technicians. My grandpa owned a chrome lab in San Francisco Bay Area called Precision Chrome. He later sold that lab and was working for a company called Denticon in the 50s. So a lot of family history, there, and training and skill that's been passed down.
So partial dentures are in your blood then.
That's all we knew. I tell a story when I was growing up, I thought every dental lab just made partials. I thought, yeah, I didn't find that out till later that, there's other things that people actually make. So.
All right. Well, that's good to know. And what are some of the most notable milestones you can remember at one point when you finally took over the lab and started running it with your cousin?
Yeah, well, I'll go a little further back. So before we purchased the lab, something that stands out to me was going to, at that time, CMP Industries in New York and doing some of that very, very first print to cast work. Using what they called a haptic device. It was like a real fancy mouse, kind of like this stylus or pen that was floating in the air. You might remember that. Then that software kind of turned into ExoCAD at that point. But that was a big thing that drew my interest right off the bat. Some other things that stood out, like 2015, 2016, when we got that first SLM metal printer. We were at our old facility. And it was about 10-foot long printer. So we had to blow off essentially the front of the building, to get this thing in.
Inside.
Yeah, we did. No joke. And we had it as small as we could get it with a forklift. And we had about an inch clearance on both sides to get it in the door and then make a hard 90-degree turn. And then we're like, I don't know how this is going to work when we got another one in that building as well. So we had two printers running in that building.
How much do they weigh?
Ooh, good question. I don't remember.
Way too much.
I think they're close to 5,000 pounds.
Okay.
Because I remember having to rent
crazy.
a bigger forklift than we had on site.
That's crazy.
So,
yeah. I mean,
and we drove that forklift maybe slightly illegally down the road to get it on site, but it was maybe 2 blocks.
It's just 2 blocks. No big deal.
Yeah.
Well, that's really cool. And what about how would you describe Bertram Dental Lab today? And what is your favorite part about the lab?
Sure. So my favorite part about the lab is just the people that we help outside the lab. Unfortunately for myself and our staff, they don't really get to see the amount of people they do affect daily. Because when you're talking in the volume of partials that we're doing, that's thousands and thousands of people annually that we're helping that they never get to see. So when we do have an opportunity to see one of those, for example, when we do a donated dental case and we get some of that feedback, I really try to showcase that so people can see, who they're helping.
Yeah. I mean, I think that goes for a lot of different technicians in general, right? Every person they help and every case they touch is really a real person connected to that, right? And sometimes it's being in the lab business, you kind of lose perspective of that when you're not actually working directly with those patients. But for your team too, it's they're not just working with dentists and those patients, they're working with other labs and helping those other labs with their workflows and figuring out how that's going to help them grow, right?
Exactly. So they're to your point, they're even a further step back to the patient to ever getting that feedback of who they're really helping. But when we had, let's jump a little bit back to COVID and people were all working remotely, I know I could never do that. I like being in person in lab, the people and our staff that are here. I want to see them. I want to work with them day to day. So that to me is what it's really about.
Do you have any good stories about like when you got some really great feedback back from one of your clients and what they said?
I guess when you said
Put
that,
you
the
on the
one
spot
thing,
here.
the one thing that stands out in my mind is we had a customer that's sort of local. They're about 2 hours away. They came down and brought a Christmas gift. And this is an older gentleman who's been in the business probably 35, 40 years. And he just said, they were sending CAD designs to Evident. They were getting the CAD work back approved, and then we were manufacturing. And he just said, if it wasn't for you guys, I'd be retired right now.
That's
So,
awesome.
right.
Yeah. And I mean, like, just to kind of give everybody else a little background too, like we have been working with Bertram Dental Lab. Evident has been doing lots of designs that end up getting sent to them anyway. So this just kind of came about as this partnership is just the logical next step in making that workflow simpler for both of our mutual labs. And so it's all about the workflow. I mean, like at Evident, we know we do the designs, and it's really just a small piece of the puzzle that people are looking for. Like quality, good designs are essential for sure, but also that workflow, that one-touch workflow that's going to help you guys save time and money in the end, right?
Absolutely. Do you want to touch on that a little bit more on just how that's going to be structured?
Yeah. If you want to first, let's if you want to kind of go over that with us, Tim, like tell us what the workflow will look like, that'd be great.
Okay. Not to jump ahead, but just with the partnership, it's not a huge change, but it's beneficial change for customers. I'll say shared customers between Bertram and Evident, where now once they have a design, and if they're uploading that model scan or iOS scan to Evident, and from the start of that order, they're selecting they want that to go to Bertram for manufacturing. Once that's completed and approved, it goes directly to us. So there's no additional jockeying of files required, and it's very transparent that you can see, between Evident and Bertram where that case is currently at.
Yeah, excellent. And I mean, I think it's going to save people a lot of time in the end. And it's just that one-touch spot where you just are sending design, and you send out your scan or your model, and you're getting back the finished product, right? So it's just making the whole thing a lot simpler and easier. But getting back to kind of like just kind of like where RPD production and stuff like that, I was hoping you could talk a little bit about your guys' workflow, just so we can kind of give labs some advice who are looking to help scale their business with their RPDs. So what are some of your observations on the current state of like the RPD production and workflow?
Sure. So I made some notes that we talked about a little bit earlier, and not to get too wordy here, but in my opinion, currently, when it comes to RPDs, you have 3 distinct workflows that are being done in the industry. You have your, I'll say, traditional analog workflow, with your physical models, wax by hand, mold, breakout, polish, fit, cast, all of that. Then you have your print to cast everybody's familiar with, where it's kind of a hybrid of digital, where you're doing that CAD work, you're doing that block out digitally, and you have the option to keep that CAD work in-house or outsource it, so you have a little more flexibility, but you're still resin printing a RPD frame, you're still investing, casting, finishing, and you got to do that all in lab. You don't have the option, somebody calls in sick, you still got to get that work done. And then I'll say more of the full digital workflow, where you're taking either a model or an iOS scan. You can still take a physical model if you want and scan it, block out, CAD design. Again, you can do that in or out of lab, and then SLM print. You can do that in or out of lab. Polish and fit, again, in or out of lab, and ship it out. So at the end of the day, in my opinion, the digital workflow gives you the most flexibility for workflow when, you know, everybody's got problems with staffing. I mean, let's be real. It's not uncommon to have people that are sick or out or whatnot, and you're still trying to meet deadlines. So it gives you a lot more flexibility. I'm not coming on here being the naysayer on analog, because, you know, we still do some analog in-house, but it is definitely more labor intensive. And at the end of the day, you know, the quality of these SLM frames we're producing are excellent.
Yeah. And I mean, also too, like the amount of equipment it takes to get into being able to do an analog RPD in your lab compared to getting an SLM are huge, right? So what is some of the equipment involved in both, and how can we kind of labs that are interested in kind of getting going with RPDs that haven't before, how they can get into that without making that huge investment on equipment?
Sure. Well, I'll just kind of assume some people watching don't have any experience here. So if you're going into the analog world, you're going to have a pretty hefty upfront investment between casting machines and sandblasting machines and maybe some tumbling machines, and then just general labor, you know, depending on your volume. If you're one person lab, that it might totally make sense, because you can get some of these things maybe pre-owned and on a smaller scale. If you're trying to keep moving the digital era and you don't want it, you want to have minimal investment, you know, you can have your investment in your CAD software, and you can go watch YouTube videos. Heck, I've got 9 videos out there if you want to go watch them on YouTube on some CAD training, and you know, just get that basic down. Or you just say, you know what, I don't want to deal with that at all. I want to work with Evident and do the Bertram workflow, and I should say Evident Bertram workflow, and upload your CAD design, get a frame back in 3 days that's polished and 98% there, you know,
ready to go.
You just got to fit it and maybe a couple little touch-ups depending on the fit, and that's it.
Yeah, I do got a question that just came in too. And it's, what's your opinion on, like, what are in 2023 some of the trends that you have been seeing in RPD demands and production?
Sure. So I just commented on this recently, that I've been going to the Lab Days LMT show for 18 years. This was the year, in my opinion, of metal printing. I've never seen so many vendors, you know, offering machines.
Yeah.
A lot of those obviously have RPD examples on them. So I do think that is becoming more commonplace, and the price points are coming down a little bit on those smaller machines. So maybe more accessible in the marketplace.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, for labs that are looking to buy those SLM printers and kind of get into that workflow themselves, like, what are some of the common challenges that that they might face when getting started?
Sure. You know, machine manufacturers, like anybody, they want to sell a machine. So a lot of times they'll sell an SLM machine, and you know, they make it sound very easy. You simply, you know, auto nest your parts, you know, let it run, but there's a lot more to it to really make that whole workflow work. So I would advise, make sure you know how you're going to support those parts, what software you're going to use. Make sure you know how you're going to heat treat those parts, another key element, because with SLM printing, fit is incredibly important, and you're not going to have good fits if you don't have the proper heat treat and you don't have the correct support strategy. You know, so you got to know how you're going to get, you know, to that end result. And then, you know, finishing an SLM printed frame isn't quite the same as a cast frame. It's actually a little bit easier. But again, have in mind what equipment you're going to need to do that. Some people, you know, they use their, I'll say, analog equipment they may have in lab already, be like a sandblaster and a tumbling machine and deplating acid. That can work, but you just got to figure out your process and be ready to invest a little bit of time.
Yeah, and a little research and development into it as well. Another question we have from Mark Peters is, what alloy are you using for your SLM? printing?
Sure. So we use LaserTech partial alloy, and this is an alloy that we have manufactured specifically for us to our specification, and we've been
Okay.
doing that since 2016.
How long did it take for you guys to kind of figure out exactly what's going to work for you and choose that one? That alloy?
Probably 2 years.
2 years of
Yeah.
trying and testing different things to
Yeah,
see
we've
what
had it
works?
all independently lab tested, and we have all the specifications on our website, kind of with our PDF flyers, advertisements. But we also do supply LaserTech alloy for those wanting to get into SLM printing. So we've been also a vendor of the LaserTech alloy to a lot of labs right now that are
That's
using the
awesome.
smaller printers.
That's awesome. And I mean, this is one of our questions too, but I think part of what you just said ties into that is what sets apart Bertram from its competition when it comes to SLM printing? Like what makes you guys unique?
It's our knowledge, for sure.
Yeah.
It's taken a long time to develop our process, and at the end of the day, it's really the process that will set apart your SLM printing. That, in addition to what machines you're using. So not all machines are going to produce as good of parts as others, and there's a lot of variables that come into that, but the biggest variable is the gas flow. So you want a really quality machine that's giving you good gas flow, because gas flow is, removing all that welding. I don't want to say oxidation is not the right word, but it's removing all those contaminants away from your final part when you're printing in a perfectly inert environment.
Yeah, for sure. And just to kind of touch a little bit, we have some questions about kind of the equipment you're using. Justin's asking, what printers are you currently using? Like what, I guess, your SLM printers.
Yeah, so we use SLM Solutions. It's a German company. They're 280 machines. So that's a 280 mil by 280 mil build plate. So almost a foot by a foot. Yep.
How many frameworks can you get on it at one time?
50, 55.
50. Wow.
If we sometimes have some small, unilaterals and repairs, we'll get mid 50s. Yeah. We've had our team in-house really work the last year on some new software and developing some nesting strategies that have really helped a lot. So they've been doing a great job and done a lot of R&D there.
And I mean, with the history that you guys have in RPDs and like the knowledge that you guys have, there must have been a lot of work going into kind of getting things going when you first got the printers and everything like that. So what advice do you have for labs that are just purchasing an SLM printer and wanting to get into it and kind of playing around with all of those settings and how they're gonna figure that out?
It's a little hard for me to comment on because I have experience on one particular machine. So, every machine's different.
Everyone, yeah.
I think manufacturers are improving. Like, they understand that people buying, they want an end-to-end solution. They want to say, I'm going to do RPDs, so I need a laser strategy that is going to work for this powder and these type of parts. So they usually have like a general chrome cobalt setting, and sometimes that might be perfect. Sometimes it might need a little adjusting, but there's a lot of factors with your alloy too. So you got to make sure that you're happy with your particle size, and your gas flow, like we talked about earlier, is good. And the humidity of your powder is very important to make sure you're not putting humidity that's over 6% is kind of our baseline. Like, you don't want to be going over 6% or you're going to have some problems.
Just a question out of curiosity, like what percentage are you doing for your partial dentures as SLM compared to printed, and is it the lab that requests that?
Again, it comes down to workflow. So like when we have labs that are uploading through our partner portal frames that are, here's an STL file and just need you to manufacture that, that goes into our queue, and those have a dedicated turnaround time. And then our other work in lab, we have customers that specifically ask for SLM, and those are also then integrated with our capacity. And then the other customers, essentially, we're still doing hand wax cast.
Mhm. What is it more of a smaller number that are still interested in the hand waxing and casting of RPDs?
We're about 60-40 right now, 60% SLM.
Okay. Okay, awesome. And another question too is that someone's just asking to learn a little bit more about the laser tech partials and what's behind that in the workflow for those.
Okay, so there's two options for the laser tech options. So
Mhm.
customers can send a physical model to us, and we'll do CAD work on it, and we'll SLM print it, and we'll polish, shine, fit to your master model, sent out, and end-to-end solution. That has one price point. Then we have the laser tech print service, where you're just providing an STL, and we will manufacture that. Same workflow, but we're just taking your file and running it on the same printers, and you can get that frame back in 2 days, unfinished, so your team can still polish and shine it, or you can get it pre-polished, so it's very, like 98% of the work is done on it already, and that's 3 days.
Okay, nice. Nice.
Yep.
And so when you first start working with a new lab and you're onboarding a new lab, what challenges do you have when kind of getting started with a new customer? And how can they make that more efficient for you if they were just signing up?
Sure. So I'll kind of answer that question with the assumption that this is a customer that's just providing STLs to manufacture.
Mm-hmm.
When we onboard a new customer, I'll say preventatively, we look at their STLs to make sure that the STLs we're being provided are something that is high enough quality that we know we can have successful prints.
Mm-hmm.
So what we do is essentially put them on, as bad as it sounds, a trial period, where we're looking at those cases coming in, making sure
Yeah.
there's no issues. And once we're past that point, which is basically completely discretionary on our end, we're saying, okay, these are consistently good, no problems. We take them out of that trial period. They don't get reviewed anymore on our side, and they go right into production.
Mm-hmm. So
So
there can be some challenges there if they're not providing you a design that is good for printing.
exactly. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, things that look doable on the screen aren't printable. And just as an example, like some people that are initially learning maybe have a class profile that's really, really light and it looks fine on the screen, but that's never going to hold up in polishing or even for a patient. So then we try to coach them through that, and by providing videos, etc., or our DME library of parts.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you are struggling with that with one of your customers and you keep getting those files back and having to QC them and they aren't passing, what steps do you take to kind of help the lab
We
to move
just get
forward?
on the phone and give them a call and or emails and try to provide screenshots of, here's areas we're seeing problems, and then suggestions, and even sending them a couple of video links of, ways they can make some adjustments.
Ways can do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect. I mean, it's always a challenge. Like you have to make sure that you're to provide a really high quality product. It's so essential that the design and the parameters and the blockout and everything is perfect, right? Otherwise, it's going to affect the product you're providing. But yeah, makes sense. Kind of moving forward too, like, and how that ties in with Evident and what we're working on together, is us being able to do those designs for our labs that are struggling or don't have people to do the designs as well, right? And since we have had plenty of experience working with Tim and his designs and calibrating to make sure our designs are meeting their requirements and their quality needs as well, we're able to kind of provide that service for labs that are struggling to find a solution for that.
Right. I think it's a great solution too for people that they're trying to scale their CAD team. You get that one or two people that really know how to do it, but you're also working with Evident to try to grow together is very helpful when you're not in it feeling solo.
Absolutely. A few more questions that came up, Tim, is that what I've been hearing people talk about a lot is a bit of a recession coming up, and how is that going to affect the industry as a whole, and maybe in particular your lab?
Sure. You know, I don't want to say we're recession proof because that sounds kind of cocky, but at the end of the day, a partial denture is on the low end
Yeah.
scale of a restoration. So when the economy is on a downturn, instead of people doing that, implant restoration, they might be doing a partial. So
Yes. Yeah.
historically, we haven't been very affected by some of those economic downturns.
Or you even see the opposite, like you'll see labs that they do less implant work and like all Onyx, and you see lots more denture and removable work coming in the door than you have in the past.
Absolutely. Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah, we haven't in the last, I'm just going to go back 5 years, haven't, even with COVID, we haven't seen a decline in revenue from that period
Yeah, that's
forward.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys scaled on a really quickly. Did you see a huge growth for the lab during COVID?
We were definitely affected by COVID. We had
Mhm.
our downturn when everybody was kind of closed up, but rebounded pretty quickly.
Mhm. Mhm. And I have a question here from Stephen Young. Are you guys also doing flexible partials, printing flexible partials yet?
Good question. We aren't printing flexibles. We have 2 flexible options in lab currently. We don't have a exclusively digital workflow, but we're milling flexible partials. So we will CAD design a flexible partial, and that's Durflex, VisiClear, Acetal. And then we also do the injected flexibles with Durflex in lab. Typically, when working with labs on those, we are getting a setup from a lab, and then from their setup injecting the flexible.
Yeah. Have you played around at all with any like resins for 3D printing partials? I've been hearing there's a few coming out on the market. Have you looked into any of those yet?
I haven't, but I've been hearing that as well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know enough information about them yet.
Yeah. It's like, once things are new, you kind of have to play around with it to see if it's going to work for you, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, our metal is, scaling where there's a lot of time invested in that. So I kind of wait until it's really, I don't want to do a lot of R&D on these printed resins quite yet until they're there.
Yeah, for sure. And another question I just want to throw in there before we continue is from Dylan. He's asking, is there a digital workflow to tie in the setups and processing of teeth and base to a digitally made casting? So basically you're doing the framework. Do you also have a digital workflow for the teeth and the tissue for that part?
We do not. So we're not doing any acrylic work. And we don't do any acrylic work in lab.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I think there'll definitely be more and more solutions to that in the future on software and milling your tissue and teeth and then putting it on your partial as well. But it's all still relatively new, and people are still playing around with those different options, right?
Right.
And just to kind of take us back to like where Evident and Bertram like first began in our relationship. Can you kind of like start us off with just like when did you first hear about Evident, and when did you first decide to kind of start working with us?
Yeah, I would say it's been about 3 years now when we first started hearing the name Evident more and more. And then more labs that I talked to were having success with Evident, and we really looked at it initially of overflow, as much as Evident probably doesn't like to hear that, and who wants to be known as, oh, you're just overflow, but
yeah, we'll take it.
right. And that's how you it's very difficult to level out your workflows and not burn people out within departments. So
yeah.
That's kind of how it started. A couple of cases we would send to Evident, and that workflow worked really well to the point that we became more of a partnership where we were looking at them as a partner when we needed help, And
Mhm.
has it become more of a daily thing now that we're providing design files, or I should say
Yeah.
model scans to them. But I will touch on, I kind of missed this when we were talking about workflows earlier. In my opinion, the key to all of these workflows is having that person in lab that really can design a partial.
Mhm.
And when I say design a partial, I'm not talking on the computer, but has the understanding of placing a drawing on a
Yeah.
partial, because that is key to making this whole thing work.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult to do if you don't have somebody that can read an RX or look at a drawing and then take it to that next step.
Mhm. Or even just understanding the components on each design and why they need to be in that place, where they need to be placed, and the importance of making that design functional, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
And
I think that's where the struggle is going to be in the next 10 years, is
mhm.
finding those technicians that have an interest in RPDs, but also have the knowledge to do proper designs and execute on those.
Yeah, and all the background information that comes with understanding partial frameworks and different classifications of frameworks and different
Right,
stuff like that, right? So,
right,
I mean, it probably for a lot of labs that haven't offered it before, they're either going to have somebody that's going to need to learn that, or they're going to need to kind of um, hire somebody that's has experience in it. A lot of those removable technicians are kind of a dying breed, and
right.
you can't find them out there very often. So where do you find people that know how to do that?
Yeah, you have to train them in house a lot of times. So I guess to me, it makes the most sense if you have that person that has that knowledge, that you can scale with that single person that can do a proper
Hmm.
design and not bog them down with all the other steps to making a partial.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, have them do amazing just drawings
Hmm.
or basic outlines if you're getting iOS scans. Provide that information to a partner, and
Hmm.
they can really be scaled, um,
Yeah.
and use that knowledge.
Yeah. Absolutely. Um, so kind of going back to where we were talking about when we first started working together and everything, Tim, like what bottlenecks and challenges were you faced in the lab when you first started reaching out to us?
So just training, I think, like everybody,
Hmm.
keeping staff trained, and that we had enough staff that could scale with the amount of print capacity that we had,
Hmm.
um, was the main thing that made us reach out.
Yeah, because I imagine a lot of labs send you their designs already done, and there'll be lots of labs that just send you the model and want you guys to do the design as well, right?
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's hard to scale when you have both different sides of that going on.
Right. Exactly.
Okay. And like as far as like this partnership and us working together, I know you described a little bit of the workflow earlier in terms of just sending us the model or the scan, and then you get your final product. We send it on your behalf. A little bit from us too is when you submit your cases, we always appreciate, or we always recommend start sending us that drawing or the design as well first, and to give us a little bit more detail, or even writing it down, right, as where you want your clasps and rests and what kind of connectors you want, that kind of thing. And it makes it streamlines the whole process to make it a lot simpler and a lot more successful as well. Um, but hopefully, like I'm looking forward to kind of seeing us launch this, and looking to working together, Tim, to see like how we can help our lab scale with this workflow. What kind of challenges do you anticipate with the workflow with our customer base?
I think it's just going to be the initial establishing the account, honestly, because with a shared customer, your team is evidence team is providing the file to us for manufacturing. So as long as we have that back end workflow properly set up, it should be
Hmm.
seamless.
Hmm. Yeah,
Um, But I just wanted to touch on your previous comment. I 100% agree. If your customer has the ability to put a drawing down over providing a written instruction, you're going to be way more successful right off the bat, in my opinion, just providing a drawing to your CAD team, because it's so much more clear. It's so much quicker.
Yeah.
You know, just do it, even if it's for the first 20 cases, so that that communication is on point.
Yeah. I mean, it's so much easier to translate what you're looking for in a partial in a drawing, rather than just writing down an RX and writing down what you're looking for. Like, I mean, even when it comes to like the mesh design, there's so many options now of what the person wants. You know, with a small drawing, we can clearly see what they're looking for.
Right.
Yeah, so this communication is definitely like a huge part of what has made us successful with designs.
Right.
And I think that's moving forward, it will always be what makes like that design partner successful, is really great communication.
Absolutely. You have to look at your outsourced partners as partners. Like, how are you communicating in lab? Are you communicating well? It's no different. You know, you want to provide Evident or Bertram, whatever workflow you may have with that drawing, or the best communication you can. It doesn't need to be wordy, but it needs to be precise.
I do have another question here from Kyle. I'm asking about the full digital workflow. I'm assuming he means like if they're sending you a iOS file,
Right.
he's asking, does the model get printed and the framework fitted before being returned? So do you get it back on the model?
So I think what he's asking is if he was uploading to us a iOS scan, I believe.
Yeah.
Which we have not publicly announced we were accepting those, but I will share, it's very close. We have been turning those away for a while. We had so much work, but we brought in lab a pretty serious production model printer. So we will be soon accepting the iOS scan, print the model, and do the full workflow, so they'd be getting it back on the model.
Nice. What type of what type of printers are you guys using for models, and also for printing out your framework designs?
So for the models, we've just brought in the 3D Systems MJP, the multi-project 2500. So it's a resin printer. And then for the frameworks, the metal frameworks, we're doing the SLM Solutions 280.
Okay. And another one that came up here, which is I think going to be really important question, kind of, I touched on it a little bit, but in terms of like turnaround time, can you kind of walk us through what the workflow will be like sending to Evident to the time you get your partial denture back? Just one more time for us, Tim.
Sure, no problem. So when you upload your model scan or iOS scan to Evident, they have their normal turnaround, which confirmed for me is 24 hours.
24 hours. Yeah, but part of that too is just kind of learning what your workflow is like in the lab too, right? So we can kind of understand when you need it back and how it's going to benefit your lab. So that's really important to us as well.
Okay, so then with the Bertram Evident workflow, the file, when it's essentially approved and provided to Bertram, let's just say that it's approved and provided to Bertram on a Monday before 3 p.m. Central Time, then we would start production on that on Tuesday, and we would ship on Wednesday. So in lab, we're printing on SLM printing on, let me make sure I get this right, Tuesday night, and shipping that out on Wednesday for an unfinished frame. That'd be just sandblasted. And if we did a pre-polish, it would be one additional day. So we'd ship that on Thursday. And so that additional day, we're doing the polishing.
Another question here from Mark Peters is, should we do the static analysis, or do you do it on your end, Tim?
I'm not sure what he's asking about there.
Yeah, I'm assuming he's like talking about surveying and
it depends on the workflow. If he's if he's sending a physical model, we'd always prefer to have a drawing that you're looking for.
Mhm.
If you need us to do that, we have a whole team of designers just doing that
Yeah.
exclusively. So
Yeah.
that's not a problem either. One thing I did want to touch on with that workflow I didn't comment on is if you're in the US, so we do take care of shipping as well. So there's no shipping cost to our
Mhm.
customers. And we do next day service for
Next
almost,
day.
yeah, everybody, as long
Perfect.
as they have the service available to them location wise.
Perfect. Love that. I mean, is it also too kind of like in the foreseen future in the coming and different trends and talking on that end? What do you guys expect to see in the next 5 years when it comes to RPD designs and RPD fabrication?
I think it's just going to keep moving more and more digital. Like you
Mhm.
previously said, will we see some advancements in teeth setup that move to digital? I think so.
Mhm.
We'll see probably more of that workflow. Well, I'm hoping we can get to a point where um, I've been asking some design companies for this for a while, where we could place I'll say a digital drawing down. So it's not
Yeah.
like an actual CAD design, it's like just a digital drawing. So like our designers that are doing the traditional survey by hand, instead of drawing with a pencil, could put down that 3D outline for the CAD person. So that essentially like a texture scan that would move on
Mhm.
to the next person would be a game changer.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't think the
Um,
software companies see the value in that, because I think they see a workflow generally of the same person doing the entire case.
mhm.
And for us, that's not what we do. We have somebody placing a drawing, we have somebody scanning, and then we have somebody doing I'll say the preliminary blockout,
Mhm.
and then our CAD team takes it from there.
Yeah, for
So they're
sure.
really being efficient as far as, how much on the computer, how much they have to do.
And also it's going to make that transition into getting those, just doing it off of a model to a full digital workflow, way easier, right? Like there won't be any need for that.
Absolutely. Could you imagine if you had an iOS scan and you could just place a light drawing down, where even the dentist could communicate to the lab,
Mhm.
say, this is what I'm thinking for design on an iOS scan. They're
Mhm.
not going to take the time to do a full CAD design, but they could do a light sketch on a 3D rendering
Yeah.
and provide that. Would be amazing for communication too.
Well, maybe you're onto something here, Tim. Maybe maybe
Please, please, RPD gods.
okay, another one too. I think this is also equipment related question. Do you have any preferred scanners, like for your desktop scanners? What do you guys use there?
We use E-Series, 3Shape E-Series
Yep.
currently. Yeah,
How many do you guys have?
3.
3? Okay,
Yeah.
nice. And then but typically you guys are also receiving those digital files too, so you'll have a lot of a little bit of different workflows for each.
Right, and we're actually just rolling out our new automation on logging it in. So as those files are coming in through our customer portal, they'll automatically be logged in
Mhm.
and generating that job, as we'd call it in lab, without having to create additional work and improved accuracy.
Mhm. So, I mean, just kind of going back to, since we're kind of getting to the top of the hour here,
Sure.
um, some of the benefits that you see for your labs on the partnership that we've created here. How do you see this helping our mutual customers and new customers and everybody with this workflow?
I see the most efficient workflow on the marketplace currently available to people that want to get on board with this. I also see the opportunity for people who don't want to invest a lot of money, but also want
Hmm.
to, start maybe getting their feet wet on RPDs, an easier entry into the market without a lot of investment. So I think it's really beneficial option for a lot of people right now.
Yeah, for sure. And kind of like if you guys want to run that final poll as well, There is on there if anybody is interested in learning more about the Evident Bertram workflow and how you guys can utilize that and help you scale your RPD business. Feel free to kind of reach out to let us have one of us contact you, and we'll kind of get you started on that and answer all of your questions on the phone. But also kind of in conclusion, what is like the most important message that you want people to take away from this webinar today, Tim?
I just hope that they found something valuable and learned a little
Mhm.
something. For those that are possibly thinking about SLM printing, just to make sure they do their research and have a good understanding of what they're getting into, because it's expensive, but you know, you could have some good ROI
Mhm.
depending on the direction you go. But
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. And for labs that are looking to scale their RPD production, whether it's utilizing like us and the Bertram workflow for your overflow that you guys have, or whether it's kind of just first kind of dipping your toes in removables and you're just kind of testing it out to see if that's a product you want to offer, please don't hesitate to kind of reach out to the team here at Evident, and we'll help you kind of walk you through what that will look like and get you going. But also you can always reach out to Tim and the other guys at the Bertram Dental Lab as well to kind of help get you started. But I just wanted to kind of take that moment to thank you, Tim, for joining us today. And I'm super excited about this partnership. I mean, having the ability to kind of now just have that one touch design to fabrication workflow and saving people time and just sitting there transferring files all day long. And I think it's going to really help a lot of people out and really just kind of make it a lot simpler to start scaling their business with frameworks.
absolutely. Yep.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yep.
So, and I mean, I think if anybody wants to learn more, please just reach out. But thank you for being here with us again, since this is your second webinar now with us, Tim.
Yes, I feel so blessed here.
Maybe more in the future, we'll see.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
yeah, it's been fun. And I also wanted to take a moment to say like happy International Women's Day to all my other fellow ladies in dentistry out there. And I hope you guys all have a really great day. And thanks for being here with us today, Tim.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for everybody that's joined today.
Thanks, guys.